Guys, it's Jeremy here on Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. What we have here today, guys, is something a little bit different. I did a video kind of recently about my top 10 rock / metal guitarist of all time. Really enjoyed making that video, kind of went back and, revisited some guitarists. And I wanted to make a similar video, but this time I'm doing my top 10 metal vocalist / frontman of all time. So this isn't a definitive list because there's obviously a million vocalists out there. And obviously people have different preferences and taste. And this isn't a list based on solely on ability, like their quality of the voice or their range or things like that. It's kind of a combination of their vocal ability, their influence on the scene, just my personal preference, bands I really like or vocals I just really gravitate towards. So it's kind of a blend of all those things, frontman points, stage presence, things like that as well. So kind of a blend of all those things, not just based on their singing ability on its own. If that was the case, it would definitely be a much different list. And don't get all butthurt, guys, if some of your favorite singers don't make my list and it doesn't make sense to you. I have some really kind of obvious kind of choices on here of guys that would be on everyone's list. But I tried to dig a little bit deeper and do some deeper cuts of vocalists that I really love, that I wanted to give praise to, and just really good guys. So let's jump right in, guys. At number 10, I have Chuck Schuldiner from Death. Died way too young, passed in 2001. He was only, 34 years old, but he's the pioneer of death metal. Introduced a kind of snarling, screeching, kind of guttural death metal vocal. And I love Chuck. Very influential on the whole death metal scene. That's why he's on my list as well. Really good songwriter, really good guitar player. Just a really good musician all around. And great frontman, really good stuff. Had to make my list. At number 9, I have Chuck Billy from Testament, my favorite all-time thrash metal band. And Chuck Billy is a big part of the reason why. He's probably my favorite thrash metal vocalist of all time. He's got that perfect, not guttural, but kind of raspy, kind of gritty kind of sound to his voice. And it's got that nice kind of deep tone to it. But he's still kind of it's like scream singing. It's not like death metal vocals. But it's the perfect tone and style for thrash metal, in my opinion. His stage presence is really good. He's a big guy. He just has fun up there. Always air guitaring with his mic stand and just having a blast. Every time I see them live, they never disappoint. He always sounds amazing. And yeah, had to put Chuck Billy, my favorite thrash vocalist of all time. Number 8 might be surprising to some people because they only had 2 albums. And, because he's on here, a lot of iconic singers didn't quite make my list. But I decided to go with Riley Gale. His voice was so angry and so much conviction. And his stage presence. I never got to see Power Trip live with Riley. If I could go back in time with a time machine, Power Trip would definitely be a band I would go back and listen to live for sure. But on the studio albums even, he sounds so angry and has this really aggressive hardcore vocal delivery. They're like a crossover thrash band. Definitely one of my favorite bands of all time. Nightmare Logic is one of my favorite all-time albums. And man, Riley was just a beast. He demanded respect on the stage, and he was just incredible. I've heard rumors that, well, not rumors, I've heard that Power Trip is continuing some shows with a new vocalist. It will never be the same without Riley, in my opinion. But I know the band wants to create music still and tour and stuff. But Riley, rest in peace, brother. What a incredible vocalist and frontman. Really, really good. He would have dominated the thrash scene if he stuck around. That band was just ready to explode. Really good singer. Number 7, I have the godfather of them all, Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy had to make my list. He's not the most technical singer of all time, but he has that really eerie kind of Ozzy sound that nobody else has. Really suited early Black Sabbath perfectly with those doomy riffs and kind of eerie sound. Nobody else would fit better in Black Sabbath, in my opinion. That early Sabbath wouldn't have been the same without Ozzy. Even with all those crazy antics, he had those kind of the persona, the Prince of Darkness, of course. He had that whole stage presence, the kind of doomy feel, all his off-stage antics that made him elevated him to the god tier level. And he's Aussie. He's where it all started. He's the godfather of heavy metal. Him and Tony Iommi kind of single-handedly created the genre, and we have to give props to Ozzy. At number 6, I have Michael Staun from Dark Tranquillity. Always been one of my favorite vocalists in that subgenre, and just one of my favorite vocalists of all time in general. He's got one of the best death metal growls I've ever heard. It's kind of like not a full-out death metal, but it's kind of like a screaming, still kind of guttural sounding, but you can still really make out what he says, which I really like. But his clean vocals are beautiful. They're just so like crooning and like melodic and kind of a deep tone to it. Rich tone on this guy. Love his melodic vocals. Every time I listen to a new Dark Tranquillity album and those melodic vocals kick in, I'm like, oh my god, it's so fucking good. Had to make my list. Might not be a popular choice for a lot of people, but I've always loved his vocals. Number 5 is kind of an obvious one, Bruce Dickinson. Classic go-to vocalist, high energy guy. He's in his 60s now. Still runs around stage. Still sings for an hour and a half or 2 hours. Good stamina. His voice still holds up really well. Not quite as good, of course, as he was back in the early 80s, but he still sounds really good. And again, he elevated Iron Maiden when he came into the band to the next level. Love Paul Di'Anno, but Bruce brought that band to be the monsters of metal that they became. And yeah, he's definitely a pillar in the vocal community for the metal scene, for sure. And the next guy, number 4, is another one that is a no-brainer, Rob Halford. Some people might be like, what the fuck, number 4? He should be number 1 or number 2. But honestly, guys, this might be blasphemy to say, I was never a monster Judas Priest guy. I always leaned more towards Iron Maiden. I have all the Iron Maiden albums. To be honest with you, I think I only have like 4 Priest albums. I love almost all of Priest material. I do like Priest a lot. I love Rob's vocals. Those really high falsettos and screaming vocals, like on Painkiller. Really good vocals. The self-proclaimed metal god, as he calls himself. And his voice still holds up really well now. He's like, in his 60s, and he still kills it. Kind of doesn't move around on stage as much. But he had the persona, he had the image, the leather and that whole look, very heavy metal, and really brought the blues out of the early metal, and kind of stripped it down. And Priest, along with Halford's vocals, really was a really straight up heavy metal band. That's pretty much it. Number 3, Rob Halford calls himself, the metal god, but in my opinion, Lemmy was the god. Lemmy is a whole other level of, he just personifies cool and everything heavy metal to me. He's badass, he's got the look, he's got the I don't give a fuck attitude. He didn't even consider himself a metal band, and I was kind of debating on whether to put them on the list. But I was thinking Motorhead is metal, like early speed metal, thrash metal. But fucking love Motorhead, love Lemmy, those gruffy vocals, sound like nobody else. But he had the persona and just the rock and roll attitude and the metal, and he's just the coolest guy in metal of all time. He's Lemmy. There's nobody else like him, and he had to make my list. He's one of my favorite frontmen of all time, with that Rickenbacker bass, the way he sang up to the microphone. Lemmy's God, in my opinion, master. Number 2, Michael Elkefeld from my favorite band, Opeth. Always been one of my favorite vocalists. Love his guttural vocals, one of the best guttural vocals, in my opinion, in death metal history. But he's got these really like ethereal, angelic, really sweet, clean vocals as well. Really nice contrast. I love his early mid albums where he's got the contrast between the gutturals and the cleans, like on Blackwater Park, Still Life, Deliverance, Ghost Reveries, Watershed, those kind of albums. And always been one of my favorite singers, not only for his singing, but he's kind of like, I love his stage presence. He's kind of goofy, doesn't take himself too seriously, jokes around, nice interaction on stage, really good guitar player. His composition is god tier, one of the best writers of heavy metal in my opinion. Very complex, intricate stuff, really proggy and heavy at the same time. And they do have a new album coming out that unfortunately got pushed to November, but I'm dying for that new album to come out. My favorite band. And Michael Oakefeld is a metal hero of mine and one of the best vocalists of all time, in my opinion. And guys, before I give my number one, I'll give a couple quick honorable mentions. And also to mention, this is my metal singer frontman list. So there's no hard rock. I'm going to do a separate list for hard rock. That's why there's no like Freddie Mercury, no Robert Plant, like guys like that, Brian Johnson, or like people like that. I'm going to make a separate list for hard rock guys separately. I wanted to focus just on metal for this list. A couple big names that didn't quite make my list that I really love. King Diamond, of course, is a monster one. Jeff Tate, but I'm not really a Queensryche kind of guy. But Jeff Tate is a really, really killer singer. Guys like Bobby Blitz of Overkill, really cool frontman, really funny on stage, high energy, really good. Joey Belladonna of Anthrax has a really nice melodic kind of voice to him as well. He's really good. Yeah, there's just some really good singers out there, and obviously not everyone can make my list. Phil Anselmo was really cool in Pantera, of course. Just so many out there, guys. And for death metal, Hardy from Obituary, or Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse. There's just so many vocalists out there I could name, but it's based on my taste and just who I really stick out to me and who had the most impact on me in general. And number one, guys, the man himself, Ronnie James Dio. Doesn't get better than Dio, guys. He's a legend. And, his work in Sabbath, Heaven and Hell is such a fucking good album. His solo career, Rising is my favorite metal album of all time. You listen to Ronnie James Dio's vocals on Stargazer, it'll change your life forever. It just builds and builds and builds. He was a short guy, just over 5 feet, but he had the voice of a monster and a titan. He was really big on stage, interactive, really good frontman, and just bigger, larger-than-life attitude. Really good songwriter, really good storyteller through his lyrics and singing. He's just Ronnie James Dio. He's everything heavy metal. His work in, like I said, Rainbow and Black Sabbath, unmatched. Heaven and Hell, Rising, some of my favorite all-time albums, and his debut album on his solo career, Holy Diver, was a monster album as well. He's Ronnie James Dio. What else needs to be said, guys? So thanks for watching, guys. List down below your favorite vocalist of all time. And I will be doing another list for my hard rock top 10 vocalist / frontman. So stay tuned for that probably the next couple of weeks. And I'll probably do one for drummers as well. Bass players probably too. I'm not as familiar with a lot of bass players. I'll have to dig a little bit deeper for that. But I wanted to continue this series. I really enjoyed doing it. And thanks for watching, guys. Keep it metal.